Hey guys, my name's Jess, and today I want to share a bit of a different, maybe even radical perspective with you about fear and fight or flight, this threat response of the nervous system that we hear so much about these days, now more than ever. It's like this almost chronic thing that we deal with on a day to day basis, whether that is like a low grade anxiety or crippling fear. It really all comes from the same place. And maybe you've even heard this saying before that fear actually is a result of a byproduct of not having enough information. So I'm going to explain this concept to you today, and at the end of this video, which will be right around the 10-minute mark, I'm going to give you a tool to start to essentially get out ahead of your fear. Literally, that's what you're going to be doing in the exercise, so make sure that you stick around to grab this super simple tool. And I just want to start out by orienting from the perspective of one of the modalities that I use. It's called rapid resolution therapy, or RRT. And this perspective essentially orients from or starts from the belief. And when we believe in the RRT space, we are simply choosing to adopt ways of thinking that are most helpful. So I say this, I start with this because we don't care so much about whether something can be proven or something is widely accepted as true, so much as we just care if it's going to help move the needle in terms of feeling better. So within the RRT way of thinking, what we are ultimately assuming is that any turmoil, any trouble, any stuckness, any conflict, anything internal that is ultimately unpleasant or unwanted is in fact arising out of what we think of as sort of like a misread, a data error, an error in how data is being read by the unconscious mind or the inner mind. So when we can start to think in this way, we immediately pull back a lot of our power, because instead of feeling like I'm upset because of X, Y, and Z external to me, we assume that the issue is arising out of something internal, which means that we can fix it on our own without needing the outer world to adjust. So right there, you already got some power back, right? So I want to get into this idea of fear as simply a situation in which there is missing information. When we think about it from the perspective of this glitch in how data is being read, it makes sense, right? So inner mind is taking in information and it's reading it in a way that causes alarm bells to fire off, right? It's like this whole circuit, the threat circuit turns on, let's say as a result of an uncomfortable conversation or like a run-in with an ex-lover or a mother-in-law, a father-in-law, whatever. And it's all of this blood flow going to your arms and your legs, fight or flight, right? You need extra blood in your limbs if you're going to run or if you're going to fight. Well, we know that in those uncomfortable situations, conversations, that increased blood flow to the limbs is worse than useless. So the solution in a situation like that, it's sort of two-pronged. So both prongs have to do with information. So the first information that we need to get through to the inner mind is that this situation, while uncomfortable and maybe highly uncomfortable, maybe awkward, maybe mortifying, cannot, even at its max, threaten our survival. Because that is often the problem, is that inner mind has become almost like an overly sensitive car alarm that is reacting to even the slightest discomfort as though it is a threat to survival. So that's the number one piece of information that we need to get through to inner mind, so that while you will still have to go through all kinds of discomfort in your life, you'll be able to do it in a way that allows you to maintain composure, clarity, the ability to think strategically. Why? Because there will still be blood in your brain as opposed to in your limbs. So that's information article number one. And then article number two is essentially a plan. So in a lot of the manifesting language and perspective, there is this flawed or incomplete suggestion that in order to live at our highest frequency and feel our best, we simply have to entertain the best feeling thoughts. And while there is value in that, the missing piece essentially is the information that the inner mind needs about what happens if worst case scenario does in fact befall us, right? So in the work that I do, we often talk a lot about having a plan B and a plan C. And the more we have a plan for contingencies and worst case scenarios, even if, we always joke, even if it's a shitty plan, that additional information that you've now given your inner mind is going to shift you out of that fight or flight, whether it's on the lower end of the spectrum or it's higher. And because of that, energetically, you are once again in a much more resourceful state of being. And so we can look at this from kind of like the vibrational frequency side of things, where when you're in fear, there's a very different energetic broadcast, right? And often, because it's so intense, you're pulling things into your experience that will amplify that fear. That's the law of attraction, or the law of focus, right? So wherever you're focused, you're generating a certain energy, and then you're pulling in more like situations and circumstances that will kind of like affirm what you're most afraid of. So we don't want to be doing that. So the more information you drop in around what would you do in the worst case scenario, actually the more the fear goes down. Okay, so these are the two main types of information that you want to look to give your inner mind if you regularly experience things like anxiety and like a really heightened fear response, or a really kind of over exaggerated fear response. So I want to go through just briefly before we finish, how do you actually do that? In the case of the discomfort versus danger, what you want to do is take inventory. So you're going to list out as many situations as you can think of that had been uncomfortable for you, where you in fact did not die. And I know this sounds silly, but your inner mind, your unconscious mind, is a little bit silly. It's a little bit immature in the way that it functions. So as you collect evidence to prove and show your inner mind that actually you can go through discomfort without ever being at risk of dying, then that fear response is going to come down. And then you may have guessed for the other type of information, what you're going to need to do is have a plan. So it can be like a point form, jot note type of plan, like this thing that I'm afraid of. Write it down and then write out, okay, let's assume worst case scenario happens. What would I actually do? Just get out a few bullet points around what you would do. And then if you're feeling really motivated, then you'll do, after your plan B, you'll do a plan C. And just by having that plan, I promise you, your inner mind is going to settle down and you're going to have access to more clarity, more resourcefulness, more confidence, and the ability to think strategically. So I hope you will put these tools into play. I know it seems like something that isn't going to move the needle, but if you can get into the habit of doing this, you're going to notice a huge difference in how you feel energetically at the level of your nervous system, which is going to allow you to feel more resourceful, more on top of things or ahead of things, more prepared for things. And just know that if there are or have been traumatic experiences that have affected you or continue to affect you, that this is just one of many, many, many tools that are available to you to fast track from where you are to where you want to be. And I know that it can feel like a mountain, and I promise you that you are a whole lot closer to the top of that mountain than you might believe. So if you are interested in more of this type of work, you can go to the YouTube page description and you'll see some links. One is for an intuitive insight call with me. It's a 20-minute call where I will do a little bit of intuitive poking around on your behalf, and we'll get on a call and we'll talk about what I found, we'll talk about what you're challenged with, and you'll leave that call with some actionable tools. You'll also see that I have 2 digital workshops. One is all about self-love and how to cultivate and retain that within yourself. And the other one is all about nervous system regulation. It's called the Nervous System Reboot. We use a lot of subconscious tools, but there are also a lot of more action-based tools that you can do on your own, similar to this, things that you can apply immediately, but also regularly to help regulate your own nervous system. So just know that in the same way that technology has so rapidly expanded, progressed, and become more precise and more impressive, so too have the tools that we have for our own healing, our own development. And so there's probably a lot out there that you don't even know that you don't know about yet. So I encourage you to check all of that out, and I will see you again soon.